Initializing Enduring Play Podcast Season 2 Engine. Decompressing audio. Synchronizing waveforms. Reticulating splines. Launching Podcast Lobby. Welcome back to Enduring Play, the podcast where we explore what it takes to create video games that don't just survive, but thrive. Loading episode preview.
And then I had to fly out to Tennessee to personally witness them all getting thrown into a wood chipper, basically, like an industrial-sized destroyer, because I had to sign off that they were all destroyed, that there was not a surviving copy out there, and that, that was, and I died a little inside that day. So yeah, that's consequences of somebody like missing a memo somewhere along the line.
I'm your host, Cheryl Platts, video game designer, director, and author of the Game Development Strategy Guide from Rosenfeld Media. Enduring Play Season 2 is about scaling our game development ideas beyond the individual. A common thread through most of our conversations is the collective, through communities of game developers, through game education, through games research, and through the events and systems that support the releases and people making our games. Few games are released in a vacuum, so how do we scale together? Desirée Rincón is a community leader focused on expanding access, opportunity, and impact within the games industry. She serves as head of gaming partnerships and outreach for Gold Star Gamers, a nonprofit that provides gaming PCs, mentorship, and a supportive community for children who have lost a military parent. She's also the head of creative and social media administrator for Always Supporting the Games Community, asgc.gg, where she helps shape content, resources, and visibility for a rapidly growing network supporting people pursuing careers in games. With over 15 years of leadership experience, from U.S. Army operations to management roles at Xbox, she brings a direct, practical experience on how games are made, who gets access, how to collaborate together, and where the industry can still do better. Desiree's work centers on turning games into something more than entertainment, a pathway to connection, careers, and tangible support for those who need it most. She's a committed community builder. She mentors emerging talent, supports veterans and their families, and champions greater access across the industry, usually with her service dog, Sydney, at her side. Today's episode is going to hit you emotionally in ways you didn't expect, whether it's stories about an amazing dog or whether it's kids who have lost their families using games for emotional comfort. This episode speaks deeply to the motivators of play and what gaming can do to lift up our lives. And at the center, Desirée is lifting up the values of community that have run through this entire season. Whether you're looking to understand the true power of accessible gaming, whether you're looking to understand how the newest generation of gamers is playing games, or whether you are somebody who's experienced a layoff and is looking for community, this episode is for you. Let's get into the game. Player 1, Cheryl Platts. Pronouns, she, her. Player 2, Desirée Rincón. Pronouns, she, her. Podcast level, start. Welcome back to Enduring Play, the podcast where we explore what it takes to make games that don't just survive, but thrive. And I am thrilled that I am here with Desirée Rincón, who is the head of gaming partnerships for Gold Star Gamers, head of creative and social media administrator for Amir Satbad's game community. And the universe did not want us recording this. This is take 2. There was a whole fire alarm the first time. And I call that a compliment. Thank you for coming back, Desirée.
Of course. Hey, life happens and we just have to roll with the punches.
We do. Well, I'm thrilled that you're making the time today. Your background is so varied and so unique. And I think that this is going to be a really important conversation to help a lot of people feel seen in a variety of ways. And it fits so well with the themes of this season, with community and, with resilience and representation, all those kinds of things. So we usually start by having folks describe their background in their own words, like they would if they would be introducing themselves at a conference. And I know you're heading to your next event. You have a very packed travel schedule. So what's your elevator pitch for your next event if you meet somebody new?
Oh, goodness. Way to put me in the spotlight. Well, first and foremost, my name is Desirée. I come from the operations side of the industry. I was a third-party operations program manager at Xbox. I worked on all the back-end items, things like publisher license agreements and vendor management for physical disc manufacturing, the anti-piracy program, royalty billing billing, revenue share, things. It was pretty varied. I wore many hats. These days, I am involved in a few different spaces. I help run community efforts alongside Amir Satvat in the Always Supporting Games community. I lead gaming partnerships and outreach for Gold Star Gamers, which is a nonprofit that uses gaming to support kids dealing with loss and trauma. And I am the founder of a multimedia studio, Digital Dame. I do freelance graphic art. I'm currently working on a collaboration with Gold Star Gamers alongside clinical psychologists on a game concept that we're focusing on mental health on. And at the end of the day, I am just a helper. I like connecting with people. I like connecting people as well. I like to hear different perspectives from all these different folks that care about and are just as passionate about this industry as much as I am. And I'm all about figuring out how to turn these conversations into collaborations and pushing ourselves ever forward.
Thank you so much for that exploration. And helpers are never just helpers, especially in the games industry where everything is so complicated and so interdisciplinary. So I'm grateful for people who are so community minded like you.
Loading. Podcast level 1. Field tested flexibility.
Let's start with your background as a veteran and how that helps sort of shape your engagement in the community. Because I think that was something we talked about in Take One that I think was a really compelling story and helped kind of explain some of the choices you made and some of like the unique skills that you bring to the table.
The one thing that I can say, I spent 12 years in the U.S. Army. That included 3 combat tours. One was to Afghanistan for 15 months, and the other 2 were year-long tours to Iraq. And during all that time, there were like 2 things that have stayed with me throughout my entire military career, and that is resilience, because there is no room for failure. There's no room for mistakes. You have to operate because you're talking about, in certain instances, life or death situations. And you have to ensure that you can pick up that ball, you can carry it the whole way, and you can pass it forward to the next person without dropping it, because so many other people depend on that ball staying up. So, resilience is definitely important, and adaptability. Like we used to always say, our running motto in my unit was Semper Gumby, which was always flexible. We had to remain very flexible because things could change at any moment, and all of a sudden there would be a lot of ambiguity that would just get dropped in your lap, and you'd have you got to accomplish a certain mission, and this is the deadline and this is what you've got to work with. And you're handed like a styrofoam cup and a paper clip and a rubber band and you have to MacGyver, a jet engine out of it somehow. But you work with what you have, and that's what you do. So you have to be super flexible about it, because things will change every freaking minute, and you have to end up, having to drop everything to pick up this other task that has to be done, because that's way more important. Or, you just have to keep your head on a swivel in many ways.
That mindset is so relevant to video games. And I don't know if people who are outside video games understand that. Maybe if you just come out, you're like, I don't understand how a background in the military would prepare you for a big background in video games. When I was working on The Sims early in my career, we'd be MacGyvering, we don't have any more room in this cartridge. This is the animation we have. How are we going to get the most out of this animation to tell this story? Repair low. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use it in 18 different ways. Or we have an hour left before we're finaling, and we can't change the code terribly much. And these are the sound effects we have. So what are we going to do about it? And the other thing that was really compelling about, there's lots of compelling about what you were saying, but the mindset of there's no room for dropping the ball, because it is life or death. You keep things going until there's a handoff or till you get to the end of the path. And that's where I've seen teams fall down that don't have that mindset, right? Like they just kind of like, I'm done my task. I'll leave it over there in the corner and someone will get it eventually. That's not how games get made. That's how
Oh my
games get
goodness.
delayed and delayed and delayed.
I can't tell you how many instances of the whole team not all being on the same sheet of music because somebody dropped the ball and didn't pass off the memo. That's led to absolute chaos that I somehow have to eventually like pick up, and it leads to dumpster fires that you have to go grab the fire extinguisher for sure.
It's such a gift that you're like, I'm a helper. I want to help people with the dumpster fire that they made by just leaving that work in a corner until it smoldered into a giant explosion.
Tutorial level, platforms, publishers, and gold master builds.
Desiree's role at Xbox bridged the gap between the publishing and platform worlds. As a program manager for Xbox third-party operations, she worked with external developers to help them through Microsoft's processes. But because she was on an internal team for one of the major platform companies, in this case, Microsoft's Xbox, part of her job was also navigating the minutiae of getting these console games to market after they've gone, quote-unquote, Gold Master, which is when a build is finalized for manufacturing or distribution purposes. Once a developer hands off their build to a platform, a whirlwind of secondary activity occurs, from additional certification checks to a lengthy provisioning, manufacturing, and distribution process, particularly for consoles that have physical media like Blu-ray discs or cartridges. When traditional physical media is involved, any mistake in the Gold Master can be incredibly costly, either requiring a recall or a large and painful day zero patch, which will usually cause fan unrest. Nobody wants to buy a game and then sit there and download it again. Note that I said traditional physical media. Not all physical media these days works as it used to. We'll talk more about that later.
Loading, podcast level 2, 50,000 lost copies.
Let's dig into that a little bit more, because I think it's an important point for listeners, but maybe we haven't sent it all the way home yet. Are there any examples from your time in games like where that dumpster fire just like it just jumps out at you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, all right. It's
okay. You don't have to name names. We can like change company.
Okay,
like change. Nobody has to know what company.
No. They will remain companies that shall not be named. Companies that shall not be named. Yeah. So there was, we ended up shipping a title from a very well-known organization. It's a very well-known game. And we ended up making 50,000 physical disc copies of this game. They sent us the master files. We got them, we got them all QA'd. Everything was good. Everything was great. We went ahead and I signed off on getting them manufactured and getting them pressed. And so all these discs ended up getting produced and getting put out and shipped to like their respective locations to be distributed, to be put on shelves so that they would be there by literal ship date. We get a phone call from the organization and they go, you have to pull all those and you got to bring them all back. And I was like, why? It turned out somebody at their organization dropped the ball and decided that they accidentally put a piece of unlicensed music on the game. And my first thought was, well, I called an emergency meeting because we're looking at something along the lines of like $1.2 million worth of product that I really did not feel like pulling back, especially after it had already been shipped out and the whole 9 yards. I was like, no, there's got to be something better that we can do. So I called an emergency meeting of all stakeholders, basically kind of sat down with like legal team and said, listen, is there any possible way that maybe we can like put a day one update that gets triggered, that's mandatory, that's a requirement, that like once you put the game into the console somehow that it'll trigger this and we can then like, I don't know, overwrite the is there any way we can do something about this that doesn't require us to have to pull all the discs back? And we went through and tried to reason with legal, but at the end of the day, legal was not having it. And legal basically said, no, this is a really, really bad violation of our terms. And we really cannot have these games floating around out there that we're going to get our pants sued off of us. So I had to make the executive decision that we had to recall all of those games. And then I had to fly out to Tennessee to personally witness them all getting thrown into a wood chipper, basically, like an industrial sized destroyer, because I had to sign off that they were all destroyed, that there was not a surviving copy out there, and that, yeah. That was, and I died a little inside that day. So yeah, that's consequences of somebody like missing a memo somewhere along the line.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to open up the trauma again, but I mean, I talk about optipessimism, like the worst consequences of success, or like successfully like launching a title all the way to the line, but like your placeholder music might get out there. What are your processes for catching that? That's man, that, and I believe every single word of it. And I've seen games get close to recalled. Like there's a variety of reasons. And there were some public recalls, like the hot copy thing that happened. But yeah, copyrighted stuff. That's just that's the public service announcement here today. Don't put other people's copyrighted stuff in your game without the right legal protections. It's very expensive. But the bigger memo is, hey,
games are hard.
Just
games are hard. And
games are hard.
And mind you, like we had a few instances where we had games that the devs were trying to enable like cross-platform play and trying to get it to work with Xbox and all the others. And it wasn't all working all fine and dandy. And that led to a few botches that we were trying to kind of like put Band-Aids on behind the scenes and whatnot. So I always made it a point to stay on top of devs and be like, is there anything you need? Is there anything that we can help you with? Is there anybody I can connect you with to get you any resources that we have in order to make it easier for you to get your game on our platform? Yeah, it led to a few of those like emergency meetings where we had to try to like finagle stuff behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, that's why Xbox paid me.
Loading. Narrative cutscene. A history of video game recalls.
Game recalls, where physical copies or digital binaries are pulled from release, triggering player and retailer refunds, are hugely expensive blunders. 100,000 copies of Tiger Woods' '99 PGA Tour were recalled when it was discovered that a South Park short was placed into buffer data on the disc. One of the most notorious recalls was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas in 2005, also known as the hot coffee exploit. A player used programming tools to inspect the game's binaries and uncovered an unpublished minigame of an explicit nature that was functional and could be enabled just by changing a feature flag in code. The functional nature of the exploit led to the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or ESRB, retroactively re-rating the game from M for mature to AO for adults only. Most retail stores won't carry AO titles, and as a result, Walmart, Target, and Best Buy all immediately pulled the game from shelves. Developer Rockstar spent tens of millions of dollars recalling, replacing, and repatching the game. Even more significantly, the scandal triggered a Federal Trade Commission investigation and eventual settlement. And of course, nowadays, developers and publishers can be fined up to $1 million for undisclosed content that ships to players that measurably changes the rating. Yes, even hidden content if it can be easily re-enabled. And a small subset of determined players uses tools to deconstruct game binaries on a regular basis. Life finds a way, and it will find a way to the parts of your game you don't want them to find. Secret content, date-locked content. These examples demonstrate how roles like Desiree's at Xbox can be so high stakes. Even when you think you're getting everything right at the platform end, a publisher or developer might unintentionally sneak something through that could trigger a massive scandal and break trust with your brand. That's why it's so expensive and time-consuming to get console titles certified. Once you cross the manufacturing and distribution threshold, the consequences are massive.
Loading. Podcast Level 3. The evolution of physical gaming media.
And what I love about that is
it resonates so deeply with me that you're just leading with curiosity all the time. Like you mentioned, like, oh, I'm calling people, I'm asking them what we could do. And you did it in your example earlier where you were like, hey, could we, like, I don't know, patch the game? And the way you described it made it sound like patches weren't super common at the time. I don't know what game it was, but like it made it sound like it was kind of groundbreaking to patch the game. And so it's like, that's bold. If it's not, if the patching isn't common, to be like, could we just change the game? And I love that. I love that spirit of, okay, what are the possibilities here? In the end, we're trying to solve problems.
Well, for physical disc manufacturing, for physical disc manufacturing was a little different because here's the thing that not many people know. Half of the discs that are now being produced are empty. They're empty discs. All they have is your product key, and that triggers a download. But yeah, the overwhelming majority of your discs are just empty.
Oh my God. Oh boy. We are going to get some messages about that one. But I mean, I believe it because there's, you see that in not just like disc-based media, but a lot of physical media has shifted to that model. And you hear that story and you can see how a trail of publishers and platforms might have got to the point where they're like, it's just not worth it. I don't want to burn bits on there. They're just going to change the second we release.
That's very accurate. And that's
like, well,
why.
Then why? Okay, I hear you. But then why disc? Why disc? Why box and disc and waste and things, right?
I feel like there's still a market for discs. There's people that like the concept of physically having something to put on their bookshelves, physical cover art. I remember, I won't lie, I like the idea of going to a retail store like GameStop and buying a game and buying merch and touching grass and talking to like managers and then coming home and being able to put a game. And if I bought like the deluxe edition or the steel book or something like that, like setting up a display for it somewhere in my home. And yeah, so I can see some of the desire to have that, especially for people that like collect cover art. And I'm guilty. I'm one of those people. I still buy tons and tons of physical discs for cover art purposes.
You answered my question. Why? Because cover art. Well, I'm glad we're keeping artists in business.
Well, I also take my games to events and get them signed by the people that worked at them too.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that. Loading.
Podcast Level 4. An anti-piracy saga.
When we were developing cartridge-based games, we had the toaster because you couldn't burn like CDs. And so you had special cartridges that could be reburned. You'd have a new build and you'd be like, gotta go toast the build. And you'd take all the cartridges and you'd put them in the little slots and you'd be like, yeah, it's toasting. I kind of wish that you could do that with purchase media where you're like, okay, you're going to give me physical media and I have this version of it, but like I can go and exchange it and toast it and get the new version. And then I still have a physical copy that doesn't need dependence on the internet or a hard drive. I wish there were build toasters in real life and not just in development. I understand why not, but I still miss the build toasters.
Podcast level paused. Loading. Tutorial level. Shipping on physical media.
Physical media requires physical quality assurance before shipping. Running a build on your hard drive is not the same thing as running it on target hardware. The graphics processors, memory, input-output, sound engine, and other constraints can vastly affect how a game runs on final hardware. I've literally seen situations where a game ran fine even on current generation hardware, but future generations of hardware broke the game because key libraries were loaded into memory in a different order. So how do you deal with this? In the golden days of real-time development for cartridge-based hardware platforms like the Sega Genesis and Nintendo DS, there were a few pathways. One was hardware emulation, where special software emulated the processor locally, but streamed the build to a controller rigged like the target screen and input device tethered to your PC for real-time debugging and QA. Another was rewritable, removable media used to get temporary builds onto production hardware for testing that could be inserted into the cartridge playback device. If you head to the show notes on enduringplay.com, you will find some links to articles articles about developer kits. The IS Nitro emulator was the primary hardware emulator used during first wave Nintendo DS development. I had one of the first North American units at my desk at Electronic Arts. An Xbox 360 development kit recently made the news when it turned up at a flea market with a pre-release build of Grand Theft Auto 4 still recoverable on its hard drive. I've also linked an article with a grainy photo of an original Famicom rewritable cartridge and a Sega Genesis development cartridge in a video. That exposed silicon looks exactly like the early rewritable cartridges I had to travel with going to demos for the Urbz Sims in the City DS. To be clear, rewritable media for a production platform is typically against terms of service unless you are a licensed developer. The homebrew USB devices typically violate licensing terms in some way. It is a very convenient tool for testing your game on target hardware as a licensed developer in certain circumstances, and more graceful than burning and shredding DVDs. But as gamers move on to expect bug-free software, the days of data-dense discs and cartridges are likely behind us. As Desiree points out, the movement is towards minimal data on media, assuming patches will be desired and necessary. As time moves on, many of these devices are becoming internet dependent to get a full build onto the device.
Resuming Podcast Level 4, an anti-piracy saga.
Yeah, that's the whole anti-piracy part, which is part of what I did at Xbox was actually centered around coming up with hardware that we could implement in order to be able to put in anti-piracy measures into our physical disc games, which is hysterical because I came full circle on that. When I was in the army, like forever, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was deployed to Iraq on my second tour. And while I was out there, I wanted to implement something for like my platoon to do. So I actually had my Wii and my PlayStation 3 and my Xbox 360 sent to me. And you go and win hearts and minds. That's what you do. That's what you go out into the populace and you go meet the civilians and you talk to them and show them that you're not a bad person. And I did exactly that. I went out into town on patrols and got to meet a lot of the civilians. There were two that ran their own business, and their whole business was modding video game consoles by putting chips in them so that they could play burn games and then selling the burn games at 50 cents a pop. And I immediately gave them all three of my consoles to put chips in. I still own those consoles. I spent so much money on burn games. But I found it hilarious that 12, 13 years later, I came full circle by being put in charge of the anti-piracy program at Xbox. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
I have no idea who would
do such a thing.
I've never seen this before. Never.
Oh.
Yeah.
Podcast level paused. Begin host commentary.
As they say in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. In Desiree's story about encountering video games while on military deployment, odds are those games weren't widely available in those regions or weren't accessible at prices those people in those regions could afford. And humans often accept a challenge, which in those cases leads to piracy. Indeed, the motivator of player-on mastery can be observed adjacent to gaming in the communities that drive hacks, cheats, and piracy into and around the video game industry. Some players seek mastery over the concept of the game in this way, and not the game's mechanics. Mod chips are a fairly involved piracy method, which involves permanently altering the motherboard of a previously valid console, altering physical computing conditions to allow games to run that would otherwise be blocked due to regional or economic restrictions. The existence of these continued techniques is what has driven so many game companies to more of an always-on, internet-connected model to verify the legitimacy of licenses on a regular basis. Players are frustrated that ownership doesn't work the same way that it used to, but the problem is also that methods of forging software and hardware have become so sophisticated that in many ways providing a live service is the only surefire way that companies feel certain folks will reliably engage without circumventing the system. But in the end, piracy of games on Steam isn't rampant. Why then is there still discussion of console piracy? That gets back to access. Most consoles are expensive, and there's good reason for this. Consoles cost a great deal to make. They are highly specialized and standardized hardware supported by a large company enforcing software standards and services at scale. But when people can't access something within even means, they will begin to look for alternate ways to get the experience everyone else is having. The lower the friction to paying for your experience, the less piracy becomes an issue. Most players are playing for comfort and immersion, not mastery over your BIOS settings. The motivations are complicated, but the law is not. Piracy is illegal. But more importantly, bypassing the exchange of money for services more often than not is going to contribute to the conditions that cause industry layoffs. If no one is paying for the servers, for the developers, for the discs to be printed, then the industry fades away. So how can we all get to a cost-benefit equation that works for as many people as possible?
Podcast Level 5. Gaming for Children of Veterans.
Since we're on the military topic, why don't we shift to Gold Star Gamers and your work there and how that's showing up for you? So tell me more about the organization Gold Star Gamers and what it means to you.
I am the head of gaming partnership. So my whole role in life really is to reach out to game devs and gaming studios and try to set up collaborative efforts with them where they share their games with our kids, come possibly play with our kids. They offer our kids opportunities to meet them, to maybe go on tour of their studios, to develop. Right now, for instance, I am talking with Xbox about getting some of our kids who are interested in junior development to go to Xbox Game Camp, where they get to learn how to code and develop a possible career in game development. We primarily use video gaming in this nonprofit because video games, as anybody in our industry can tell you, they obviously speak to us. It's a place that can reach anyone, that anyone can relate to. Video games is something everyone can relate to. So we basically kind of come to their level and reach them in a medium that they understand fully. They play video games, and in doing so, they play with each other. They oftentimes will talk to each other. We have a Discord, by the way, that is fully monitored. Every adult that is in this Discord has been background checked and vetted. We make sure these kids remain fully secure. We run this Discord where we have community days. We play video games together as a community. We have a dedicated Minecraft server. The kids will go into this Minecraft server and build monuments to their parents. And they like to play Fortnite Friday. We give out V-Bucks and small prizes, and often we give out like game keys too for performers, or we will actually run the Wheel of Doom. It's a roulette, basically, like okay, who gets, who's gonna get a couple of keys or Robux or things like that. We tend to play the what I call the trifecta of gaming for kids, which is Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite. But we do play a variety of lots of different games. We have a program where we have mentors that are military veterans or employees from corporations like USAA that either come in and do group mentoring where they play with the kids or help them out with homework or give them life advice. Some of these kids sometimes don't know how to tie a tie, and so they teach them how. Or they need advice on how to talk to their crush or how to navigate that obnoxious bully at their school or something like that. And so we have mentors for that. We have a one-on-one program too that's very much like Big Brothers Big Sisters, where mentors will be paired with a child for a year and they dedicate 2 hours a week just to that child. And which is a lot of children in our group. It's very important, especially if their loss was more recent than the others. We do run a very wide range because our youngest kid right now in the program is 6 years old, silly Red Ranger, and he's adorable. And our oldest kid right now is 19 because we allow kids to stay until they're 18 or until they graduate high school, whichever comes later. And some of these kids, they dropped out of school for a year when their parents passed too. So they're also, trying to get back into the groove of things, and we have mentors to assist them with that. So it keeps me busy. it's very engaging, but it's very rewarding. I get so much personal satisfaction from talking to these kids and hearing their stories and hearing them support each other too, because the kids are so supportive of each other in the Discord too. And whenever we get new kids in there, they are very welcoming and they're just so good. Like kids are so pure. and they didn't ask for their parent to pass, and they didn't ask for their parent to be put in a situation where they don't come home, and it's heartbreaking, but at the same time it just makes me just awe-inspired because they are so resilient about it. They are so good at being able to they I'm sorry. I'm
No, you don't have to apologize at all. I mean, it's deeply moving. I mean, the second you were like, they build monuments to their families in Minecraft, and it's just, it's next level. And when you think about how far gaming has come, it defies a lot of the stereotypes that we might have had 20 years ago about how kids use gaming, right? When I was growing up, it's like, oh, quick, we're gonna go run around and stuff. But you're talking about people being welcoming and creating communities and connecting with each other and like self-expressing and creating space and processing grief through games. That's
exactly. If you put in some adult who wants to throw like adult therapy practices at the kids, it's going to go right over their head and it's not going to be like even remotely impacting. But you give a kid a controller or give them a video game, and I can't tell you how often kids will like tell you about their entire like week at school while they're building you roller coasters on Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Loading. Tutorial level. The motivators of play.
I could have chosen any number of topics for the first chapter of my book, The Game Development Strategy Guide, but I chose to center the motivators of play because of stories like Desiree's. For too long, gaming has been undersold as a time drain and not as the genuine and complex solve for human psychological needs at scale that it really is. While the 6 classic motivators of play I call out, fun, mastery, competition, comfort, meditation, and immersion, have been present for decades, there are 3 more modern motivators: companionship, self-expression, and education, which have taken greater hold as a result of the prevalence of broadband, cloud services, and more advanced portable computing devices like smartphones. In particular, comfort and companionship shine through in Desiree's story, and these are supported by many recent emergent studies. A 2026 Boston University study found that 64% of their 350 student respondents used video games as a method of coping with stress, with slightly more reporting playing multiplayer games, 57%, than reported playing single-player games, 52%. In the Entertainment Software Association's 2025 Global Power of Play report, 58% of their 24,000 global respondents reported playing for stress relief as a separate motivator of play than playing for fun, and 71% reported the video game introduced people to new friends and relationships, while 64% reported that video games helped them feel less isolated and lonely. The ESA report also cites research from American psychologists that states,
gaming may be among the most efficient and effective means by which children and youth generate positive feelings.
Focus Gold Star Gamers puts on gaming is supported by real data. Keep in mind, the more players turn to games for stress relief specifically, the less they're going to look for stressful games, like competitive or mastery-based games. And players may choose different types of games based on context.
Loading. Podcast level 6. Comfort and companionship at play.
Games are profoundly therapeutic. Anyone who is a gamer can tell you that for sure, obviously. Like, and I say that not just as somebody who's witnessed it through Gold Star Gamers, but as a cancer survivor. Oftentimes, like during my treatments, that's what I was doing. I was playing video games. I was bedridden for a time frame, and it was like my platoon who was playing games with me online during my recovery. And when we were deployed, that is how we as a unit, that's why I had literally my Wii and my Xbox 360 and my PS3 sent to me, because I knew that I could set those up in a common area and my whole unit would be like just playing. And that's exactly what we did. And we would set up like little LAN parties and play Call of Duty. And I met my best friend sitting in the internet cafe. I was playing Half-Life and he was playing Fable, and we started geeking out over each other's games and then looked at each other and said, did we just become best friends? And he was like, yep. And our love language to each other, even now, like 20 years later, is literally like the Steam winter sale. That is how we send each other Christmas presents. Like we.
Oh. Yeah, I believe it. And, that's something too on Twitch that I've noticed is the power of gifting in the game community is something that a lot of companies sleep on. There was something I kept bringing up at Riot. I'm like, why can't people give people stuff? Like, people want to gift other people stuff. They just want to give you money to exchange for services for other people. Why aren't you letting them do that? That's a love language in gaming. Like, people are doing that all the time on Twitch. Give people subscriptions, give people stuff, buying Steam codes for other people, exchanging those things. There's like this surprising well of generosity and sharing enthusiasm for games. And especially when you play multiplayer games, it's also like self-serving, because you're like, I would like you to like this game, so you will play it with me and we will be friends in the game.
And nailed it. That is no lie. That is exactly one thing that we only recently got our Twitch channel at Gold Star Gamers like kind of up and running. And it's been wild that in the course of only a couple of months, we've gone from not having a channel to having like 200 followers. And many of them are subscribers. And it's because people just gift each other subscriptions because they think it's cool. We've had a couple of Humble Bundle programs. We actually have one going on right now. And a lot of people will say, well, I already own those games. I'm like, so gift them to us. Go ahead and purchase them and give them to our kids. I mean, I have half my Discord group playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. Amazing. As a result. And
which is a quality game.
Loading. Podcast level 7. Self-expression, mastery, and user-generated content.
Yeah, I think our kids genuinely like being able to discover new games too, and trying to figure out how they can recreate it in Roblox, because that seems to be the thing too.
Oh, well, I mean, there's so much to unpack about that. In a way, it's like a great problem to have, that they're so curious and that they're so determined that they're like, life will find a way. I will figure out how to do this. I went to a talk at the Game Developers Conference earlier this year about Genshin Impact and their user-generated content world. And, one thing that stuck out of it is they were like, here's some stuff people did when we released this. One person created a neural network. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? But that's the thing. You create sandbox worlds, and humans will just human the heck out of it, right? Like, we love a challenge, and it's like, it's not fun if you give us blue sky. You have to give us like, back to your MacGyver example, you have to give us like the paper cup and the paper clip and be like, make me a Ferrari. And you're like, great, I got you.
Loading. Podcast level 8. When the spirit of play endures.
Yeah, we have kids. Again, kids are something else. Kids will literally come up with the wildest things too. And I think it's it really adds up to, like I said, the personal satisfaction I get from just being in their presence more often than not. I love to get in group chats with them in the Discord while they're playing Fortnite and get into the ridiculousness of them. And a lot of them they go through the same problems that like we did when we were kids, we were teenagers. The difference is that they don't have, one of their parents is not there, and the other one is probably oftentimes shut down by grief themselves, and it can't be fully there for their kids. And our founder will oftentimes tell a story about how she herself is a Gold Star widow, and when her husband passed, she had to tell her son that her young son, who was, I believe, like 9 at the time, and he didn't fully grasp that his dad was gone. So he went down to the basement and he went and turned on his Xbox, and he went and put on his headset, and he went looking for his father online because he thought that maybe he would be able to find him there.
Oh my God.
And that, yeah, Yeah. She tells that story and it breaks me every time. And I know this kid. I've known him and he's such a good kid. Maddox is a really, really good kid. He's definitely a shining example of what this program can do for all our kids. But yeah, I can't even fathom little kids having to deal with suddenly not having a father there. And I lost friends when I was in the military service, and friends who had kids. So this was so it was personal to me. I felt like I needed to involve myself in some capacity. So,
well, thank you for that work, and thank you for sharing those stories. Like, it's so poignant. My God, just like there's like a wisdom there. The looking for your lost loved one in like that digital space. There's something like that maybe
because his dad constantly played with him online. He just knew, he's like, well, maybe if I just go online and go look for my dad, he'll be right there and everything will be fine. And and it wasn't.
Why not? Right? Why the veil? Why is the veil like that? Why can't we game with our loved ones? Let's figure that out. I think he's right. But thank you. This is we'll talk at the end of the broadcast about how people can support the work of Gold Star Gamers, because it's obviously really, really impactful for those kids, and a great example of how games create third space. Games create connection and companionship, and help us process grief and help us cope with the difficult things in life. So thank you so much for all of that.
Podcast Level 9. Sydney the Service Dog, a case study in accessibility.
You're creating spaces that are very inclusive for those kids. And speaking of trying to find spaces that are inclusive, one of the things we were talking about getting set up for the podcast, you are often seen with your service dog, Sydney. And can you talk about your partnership with Sydney a little bit? Because I would be remiss if I did not ask about that partnership. One of the things we've also spoken about in this series is events and their relationship to gaming, esports, conferences, and you have a very specific and important take on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I am convinced that if I gave Sydney her own LinkedIn platform, I would have literally 0 connections and my dog would just have all the connections at this point. She is definitely better known than I am. I have been to events where people know who she is and don't have a clue who I am. That happens way more often than I care to admit. That happens way, way more. Matter of fact, at GDC, you mentioned GDC earlier, my dog, we went to the GDC Awards and my dog, not me, my dog got VIP seating at GDC, at the GDC Awards.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. So needless to say, yeah, she's definitely more popular than I am, which is a good thing. I mean, she is the social one for sure. I am a very high functioning introvert. I have to admit that events oftentimes, like the amount of people and crowds, they very, very quickly overwhelm me. And my dog is very good at managing that for me. That is not her primary duty. She isn't just my companion. She is an actual medical service dog. She is a critical part of how I operate. She is trained for seizure alert, and I cannot drive legally without her. And I live alone. So I have to have her everywhere I go, basically. And when I travel to other places, I usually will rent a car. I have to have her with, and Sydney is amazing at her job. She's really, really good. She does item retrieval too. I have some complications that stem from my time with cancer that include neuropathy in my hands. And I also have a recent hand condition too, called Dupuytren's contracture that is now affecting my ability to be able to hold things. My dog spends half her day just picking up things that I drop, which is accurate. Like, I drop so many things and she just will pick them up and very patiently give them back. She does do PTSD support, and she's actively helping me manage real day-to-day challenges. So like I said, in environments that you were talking, like, loud, crowded, generally unpredictable, she really gives me stability. She gives me early warning when something's off, so I can stay present and in control. And because of her, I'm able able to attend all these events and be seen, which actually goes a long way to being able to connect with this community. I'm able to really show up, really engage, really be able to perform at the level that I expect of myself. My profile picture on LinkedIn is literally me and my dog because people will forget what I look like, but nobody forgets my dog. So then when I send out connection requests, they see dog and they go, oh, it's the woman with the dog. Cool. I know exactly who that is now.
And I mean, that is good branding. And hey, I got my dream job, I think, because I posted a picture of me at the riot layoff with, a specific toy giving me advice, right? So live your most authentic life. If that's it, then be authentic. I think that's a big part of the puzzle. It doesn't always work out immediately. Sometimes it takes 30 years, but we get there.
Podcast level 10. Gaming doesn't stop with disability.
What advice would you have for event organizers, whether they're like professional game development event organizers or maybe gaming event organizers, like, for example, at Penny Arcade, about creating spaces that are more inclusive for people like you and for their famous dogs or whatever other sort of accommodations you might need? Like what would, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the events you go to, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. That's a really good question. One I actually answered yesterday because PAX East sent out their survey, which I'm always all too happy to fill out because I love giving feedback, especially when it comes from an accessibility perspective. When accessibility is missing, people, you're not just inconveniencing people, you are literally shutting them out. And that's not just in theory, that's an actual reality. If we had an event up here that shall remain unnamed that came under heat because their ADA was the way that they navigated ADA access was basically non-existent and caused a massive uproar in the community. But if I can't safely navigate a space with my service dog, I can't be there, period. And I've turned down speaking opportunities at this specific con that I mentioned because the response that I got when I asked about ADA accessibility was unacceptable. This isn't just abstract for me. Aside from me having my own dog, I also have a lot of friends who are gamers that are literally missing limbs. My friend Noah lost an arm and both his legs in Iraq. My friend, I recently connected with Dave. He only has one arm and one leg, and he plays using standard controllers because he's adapted himself to it. I have deaf friends, blind friends with cognitive disabilities, and all of them game, and all of them figure out how they're going to make it work. They all game. They all find connection through gaming. So when accessibility isn't considered, it's not minor. It's a real decision about you're really gatekeeping, and it's a decision about who gets to be included. And if you apply that same thinking to games, you start to see just how many into events as a whole, you start to see just how many people we're pushing out of our community every day. So I always make it a point to bring up anything that I see. GDC, for instance, had several instances where I provided my contact information and said, your staff can absolutely make this better if you provide seating for people, out here in the lines that you're waiting, or make room for wheelchair access in certain pain points, or restrict elevator access to people who need it. I try to be a voice for anyone else who might not be able to speak out. I do appreciate that many events now do offer things like quiet rooms. I especially took a GDC. I absolutely took advantage of every quiet room I could get, namely because I had to find a quiet space to not only decompress and give my dog a break, but also to administer medication on myself. I needed space in a room to be able to shoot myself. So a lot of my medication is administered via a syringe. So I had to make sure that an ample space to be able to do that, because just stabbing myself in the middle of a hallway is not really convenient for anyone involved. So
Podcast level 11, turning public platforms into positive momentum.
I thank you for, I can't know what you're going through, but I know in the situations where I've been at workplaces and I've had to speak up because things are not accessible, like it never feels good, right? Like you're the squeaky wheel. You're like, am I going to get more excluded because I'm speaking up? Is this the end of my career? I don't know about you, but like for me, there's always a fear that comes with it. But I'm also very conscious of, well, I have power and other people don't. So I better say something.
Absolutely.
And you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My dog has a platform, and I mean, she has a pretty powerful platform. She's a cute dog. I mean, you can't really fight that. She's an adorable dog that cosplays at events, and she wears like little sunglasses at industry events, and everybody loves her. And I know that I have visibility, and I try to use that visibility for good things. So I try to push forth community endeavors like Amir Satvat's games community, the Always Supporting Games community. I try to, push forth nonprofits like Gold Star Gamers. I try to put out good karma by, offering help and assistance to anybody who needs it. And I try to stand up for people who might not otherwise be heard, because I know that I have a platform where people will hear me if I actually use it.
Podcast level 12. Crowdsourced. Gaming. Accommodations.
You mentioned that you are going through some physical challenges in your hands right now. And I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know what you're going through, but like I have had several hand surgeries and things myself. And are you adapting to the way you play?
I have hand surgery next month. And yes, I am actually. I recently bought an additional keyboard and mouse to try to operate. It's a little modified, and it's to be able to operate gaming differently so that I can try to get over the fact that like on my left hand, two of my fingers don't really work so well. Hopefully that will get fixed in the next 2 months, because I am going in for hand surgery as well. But I'm part of a lot of communities online, and I'm genuinely impressed by this. Reddit, for instance, has a lot of subreddits, and there are subreddits completely dedicated to, I kid you not, 3D printing for modification. So when people need like modified joysticks, because they are missing fingers, or I have a friend of mine, his name is Zach, and his nickname is Nubs because he's literally missing like all the main fingers in one of his hands. He had an accident, but they have like 3D printed modified attachments to gaming controllers and to like Steam decks and things like that, where you can actually modify. So you basically will put in, your request per se, like say, hey, this is what my hands look like, or this is what I'm dealing with. This is my disability and I need to adapt to it somehow. And people will just brainstorm things and make things happen, and then send 3D plans to make things. And if you don't have the means to like 3D print, a lot of them will do it for you and send you the product themselves. And many of them do it out of pocket. It's amazing what a community that does a community of gamers can do when they come together. I see a lot of collaboration. You might not see a lot of the collaboration here in the United States. In Canada, it's really common. It's wild how often you see people that'll be like, hey, I'm a programmer, but I'm not an artist, but let's go ahead and combine our powers with this group that's all artists but need an actual programmer to put games together and make games happen. That is a very common thing that happens. From what I've seen at events in Canada, it's really, really common. I know that the effort's starting down here to some extent. Cave Bear Games is kind of leading the forefront in that. They actually have a partner program where you sign up and you can actually join their network and try to see if you guys can borrow talent from each other. There are a lot of efforts in this day and age to try to get games out there and try to make really cool things happen, which is it really makes me, it puts a little bit of faith. My faith in humanity is replaced a little bit. And also it makes me feel a lot better about the future of gaming, especially in the environment of layoff that exists.
Narrative cutscene. The ASGC.
ASGC, aka Always Supporting the Games Community, or previously Amir Satvat's Games Community, was founded in 2022 and has become the largest games support community in the world. ASGC started as a response to the chaos of tens of thousands of layoffs. It has grown into something much more enduring. As described on their LinkedIn page, which has 15,000 followers, we help gamers get hired. Zero profit, infinite caring. ASGC provides practical, real-world help for job seekers and professionals at all stages of their career. And these job resources, with role-by-role guidance and mentorship lists and resume and portfolio support, all of that requires coordination on the internet, which is where Desiree comes in. They are proud about having no upsells, no paywalls, and no monetization. Amir has channeled his passion for community organization, data analysis, and his love of the game to place thousands of game developers back into the game and keep thousands more informed about the state of the industry through his LinkedIn page. And he was awarded the first TGA Game Changer Award in 2024. When you see him taking the stage for that award, beaming in his gamer gear, you can't help but think that there might be a place for you in that community too.
Podcast level 13. Supporting the ASGC.
To hear you talk about communities on Reddit that are building prosthetics for each other with 3D printers, like it just reaffirms the importance of these community themes. And that's probably a good segue into probably the last topic for us to talk about today is your work with the Always Supporting Games community. And that probably resonates for a lot of listeners because it's a very large community and is a very large force in the larger game development community right now. Can you talk a little bit about your work with Always Supporting Games community and what it means to you and how you see the trends shaking out?
Yeah, absolutely. I joined that community, basically in its infancy. It didn't really exist when I met with Amir. Amir at the time was putting out spreadsheets with all the combined games jobs that were out there in the hopes that maybe he could offset some of these layoffs and get, people rehired by other companies in some way, shape, or form. He really, really wanted to do something more to bring more visibility to this ever-growing pool of people that were being laid off. And he really wanted to, he genuinely loves this industry. He genuinely loves video game. And he really wanted to put a genuine effort out there. So he tried at the beginning doing a lot of this by himself and realized that he couldn't, that there was no way for him to do it. Not even so much because you're talking about a man that barely sleeps. He has 3 young children. They're all like under the age of 12. And, he's got a wife and 2 aging parents and he has an actual, job. And yet this man is up at all hours of the night trying to make his resources better, trying to talk to organizations about hiring people that are on his that put themselves up on their list of hiring and basically reading a lot of emails from folks that are just at this point hitting desperation. I was one of those people. I am. I mean, I'm still unemployed and really in dire need of a job, but I wanted to be productive and I wanted to do something with it's not really downtime because I'm still applying for jobs. I'm still looking for work, but I wanted to do something to put a little love and karma out there. Cause I mean, being laid off twice in the last 3 years is brutal. There's just no clean way to package it. And what got me through was basically treating layoff like a full-time job. And so I tightened my network. I stayed visible. I reached out. I offered help where I could. And that's how I got connected with Amir. And I wanted to contribute even without a paycheck attached and help in some way, shape, or form. And the way that I could help was, I can draw. I can build web pages and I'm a graphic designer. At least I have a bachelor's degree that says I am. So I said, okay, yeah, that's what I can help you with. Amir had put out his webpage and it was so painful to look at that I immediately messaged him and said, just give me your password and just let me go on there. I will rebuild your site for you because it hurts.
Just give me your password. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. I this hurts and I'm sorry, but I got to go in and do something about this. So he kind of did. And he just handed me like the keys and I said, I got this. And I went in and built this webpage for him, and which is what you see now in the community. And again, it's that feeling of satisfaction at being able to have contributed in a small way to other people being able to like get a job and being able to, navigate resources that will help them in the long run. There's several other ways that you can help. You can sign up to be a mentor. You can sign up to be a LinkedIn reviewer. You can sign up to be an art portfolio reviewer, or you can do mock interviews with people.
I think you are underselling yourself. Many people would be like, build a functional website for thousands of job seekers and also do the graphical design. I mean, don't undersell yourself there.
Oh, it was fun. I enjoyed it tremendously. I think one of the things I have the most fun with actually is getting on the phone with Amir when Amir gets an idea, and he will get them at random times, and he'll be like, "Okay, Des, I want you to draw me this," and then he'll just like say the most unhinged stuff, and I will be like, "That sounds amazing. Let's go with it."
And you like turned one of those things into like a plushie, right?
Yes, I did. I turned Amir the Diver into a plushie, which I then converted. I converted into a plushie, and then we did a campaign on it, and all the net proceeds from the plushie sales went to Gold Star Gamers. So it was a win-win all around for everybody. Yeah.
Final boss level, the unicorn and the platypus on the job hunt.
That is not a small thing. That is a lot of things, and it's amazing. And people are sleeping on you and your talents. And I want to talk about that for a second, because I think it's a struggle I've seen with the market the way it is. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but because you have many talents. You started talking about how you were a program manager, also just like a general leader and able to solve a bunch of problems. And then you're also like doing marketing and business development stuff for a nonprofit. And then we casually walked to the end of the conversation, like, also I'm building websites and plushies and graphics. That's why aren't people hiring this person? And my experience when trying to navigate the job market was like, the more things I tried to throw at people, the more scared they were of me in this market.
That's very accurate. There's two reasons I see for that. One of them being, and actually I had a conversation last night with Chris Tran specifically about this. When you put out all the different things that you can do or whatnot, it can land one of two ways. It can either be that you are a unicorn, and it could, because you're amazing and you can do all these things and holy cow, or it can come out that you're a platypus. And by platypus, I mean like you're a generalist and you have a lot of like different skills and that probably don't belong all together, in the same way that like a platypus, it probably should never exist because it just has all these random body parts that like should not exist together. And so it turns out that you to also kind of sell yourself so that you firmly place yourself in the unicorn realm rather than be seen as a platypus. And it's one of those things where I've probably failed at miserably because, again, I'm an introvert and I don't really know how to sell myself very well.
And I hate the word failed, right? Like we're all doing our best, and it's like knowing how you thread the needle to compete with tens of thousands of other people. But I just see so many people internalizing the failures, and many of them are so talented like you. And it's not about you're not talented enough.
Man, tailoring your resume is almost, I personally tailor my resume for literally every job that I apply for. I make sure that I go in and I do at least some semblance of tailoring. I realize that being good at your job, and I'm using air quotes for this, like being good at your job is just not enough in this day and age, because the market is so overwhelmed right now with so much good talent, so many people that have been laid off, and they've all got years of experience. How do you differentiate visibility and relationships and being able to articulate the impact that you can make? That matters just as much, if not more, than just being good at your job. Because like I said, there are a lot of talented people that just get overlooked because they assume that their job, their work, or their resume will speak for itself, and it doesn't. You have to. And also, access isn't evenly distributed, and talent alone just doesn't unlock it. I thought that like when I first came into the industry, I thought that if I like worked hard enough and did great work, that all the right opportunities would just like magically show up in front of me. And that's just not how the world works. You have to be actively building relationships, and you have to put yourself in all the rooms, all the right rooms. You have to make your work visible. You have to that's been probably my biggest pain point. Cause like I said, I would rather be in my bedroom playing video games holed up than being out in the real world, actually having to engage people.
Yeah, this is the hardest on introverts, no doubt. Like, talk to people who just been laid off. I'm like, how's your LinkedIn? They're like, I don't like it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We're going to have a talk.
I can't tell you how many times I've rewritten my LinkedIn and my resume, and I'm about to do it again after my conversation last night with Chris. I have to, but it's part of, learning and getting yourself seen out there. The people that move forward, they're not just skilled, they're connected, and they know how to position themselves. And I want to strive to be more of that person.
Well, you are.
Because
I see you doing it.
I try. I'm doing my best.
Bonus level. Proudest work.
My last question is, what are you most proud of in your career?
I'm most proud of the fact that I have built things that have actually held up under pressure. In my previous jobs, I've built systems and I've put teams together and communities that just don't fall apart the second that things get hard. At Xbox, that meant operations that people could trust and that my stakeholders could trust. And in my community work, it means spaces where people continuously know that they can come and get help. I'm not a person who rests on their laurels. I've always been the kind of person, so when something works, great, but I'm already looking at how to make it better and how to push myself further. And that is one thing that I love about both my work with Gold Star Gamers and work with Amir. Amir is constantly on the phone with me, texting me about like, what if we did this thing? And he loves to run things by me, and I'll be like, okay, but hear me out. What if you did it this way instead? And we're constantly trying to come up with updates or things that will make things easier or resources more accessible to people. And so, yeah, he does a lot of the same. He'll turn around and ask me like, why are you up at this hour? I'm like, well, I was busy putting in an improvement into like the mentorship slide deck for Gold Star Gamers or something. We are really good about trying to make things better, how to push ourselves further. If it only works when everything's easy, it obviously wasn't built right. I take pride in building things that last. And that is my point of pride.
Loading. Final podcast level. Links and follow-up.
I hope that this and the many other ways in which you are lifting people up will come back around, and we can lift you up in return, because that's how communities work. The rising tide lifts all ships, and hopefully sooner rather than later. But I really appreciate the time we got to spend together today. This was really enjoyable for me. I know, and I appreciate your tenacity coming back despite the absolutely bonkers first take that we had. So thank you for giving it another chance. Yeah, I am too. Thank you. How can people follow your work? I know you mentioned that you are an introvert, but you are out there. So how can they keep up with you? Or if they, for example, might be interested in working with someone who builds systems for the long haul that stand the test of time?
I mean, I think the easiest way to get my attention or to reach me is just to, for lack of a better word, slide into my DMs. I am on LinkedIn. You can't miss me. My profile is literally myself and my dog. Don't just send me a connection request. Actually send me a message and be like, hey, I'm an actual living human being and I would love to connect and we can talk shop, or, give me the reason why you want to connect with me. And I will absolutely be more than happy to make that connection and converse with you. And if you need assistance with getting a job in gaming, I can direct you to all of the resources at ASGC. If you want to help me with Gold Star Gamers, again, I'm more than happy to connect.
And for folks who want to learn more about the Always Supporting Games community or Gold Star Gamers, you can always check out the show notes at enduringplay.com.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that your next convention travel is amazing. I hope that you and Sydney have a great time. I am rooting for a fantastic next chapter that exceeds all your expectations.
So we're looking forward to enjoying ourselves in Vegas at Level Up Expo, and we'll be attending Icon down there as well. We will be traveling to the esports next immediately after that. It's going to be a really busy month because we've got several events lined up in the next 3 weeks. We're also going to be at GameSpeed Summit. We'll be at XP Summit in Toronto, and we will be at DreamHack in Atlanta.
That is intense. I salute you. Some viewers may be actually able to cross paths with you. So look for Desirée and Sydney, the amazing dog.
We've got events lined up for basically the entire year. We will be at most major events. If you see a dog with a lightsaber, that would be my dog. And
and if you don't stop for that, are you human? I don't know.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Desirée. Safe travels.
Same. Thank you.
Continue exploring the craft of game development with my book that inspired this podcast, The Game Development Strategy Guide. Available worldwide from your favorite online bookseller or from my publisher, rosenfeldmedia.com. Enduring Play listeners can get 15% off at rosenfeldmedia.com through July 31st, 2026, using the code EnduringPlayS2. Check out Season 1 of this podcast for the interviews that helped inspire the book, or tune in next time for interviews that help expand our understanding of what it takes to create games that don't just survive, but thrive. I'm your host, Cheryl Platts. Until next time, keep thriving.
Initiating final credits sequence. Podcast. Enduring Play. Created and produced by Cheryl Platts. Copyright Idea Platts, LLC. All rights reserved. Explore the podcast at enduringplay.com. Podcast theme composed by Cheryl Platts. To learn more about Cheryl's books, visit rosenfeldmedia.com. Follow Idea Platts on Instagram, YouTube, or Blue Sky, IDEAPLATZ. To learn more about Idea Platts, the design education consultancy, visit ideaplatts.com. Thank you to David Dema for episode quality assurance. For book and podcast merch, go to ideaplatts.dashery.com.